Hey, how's it going, guys? So we are out here in Bakersfield, California. We just finished the League Cup, and I have with me
Halo Bernolti.
And what place did you get?
I got first place.
Cool. And what were you piloting today?
I was playing Seismitoad Zoroark.
Perfect. So let's get into the deck profile and see what you were running exactly.
Right, so for the Pokemon, we have 4 Seismitoad. Pretty straightforward. It's the main attacker of the deck. I've seen lists only run 3, but I want the 4th. One, because it increases the odds of starting with it, which is very important. It makes it so you don't have to dig for Floatstone and DCE to get the turn 1 Quaking Punch if you're going second. And also, I don't play any Bridget or Fan Club or anything like that, so I wanted to be able to draw into them naturally without having to Ultra Ball into just a Seismitoad. Again, 4 Zorua. Pretty much the same logic. It's one of the main things of the deck. I want to get as consistently as possible, and I want to be able to draw into it naturally as much as possible instead of having to Ultra Ball for a basic and then Ultra Ball for the stage 1 as well.
So I see you're running the Paralyzing Gaze one. Did you ever use it throughout your matches today?
Never used Paralyzing Gaze once. I would not pay money for them. I found them lying around, so I used them. But okay. Otherwise, no, I don't think they're worth as much as they're selling for each.
Cool, perfect.
3 of the Trade Zoroark, again, nothing special. It's the backbone of the deck, honestly. The reason why this deck is good is that obviously consistency is a huge part of the game, and especially in Expanded with VS Seeker, decks are incredibly dependent on their items for consistency. So my logic behind the deck, and I've been playing around with this for about 2 weeks now, is that with Zoroark, I can just get a ton of consistency myself and just be straightforward, have a ton of consistency, and while I'm item locking, my opponents don't have that consistency. And so basically I can just win by having more consistency and more access to my resources than my opponents. And obviously Zoroark being able to trade consistently every turn lets you do that.
Nice.
1 Breakthrough Zoroark. It's an interesting inclusion that I've seen some people exclude from the deck. I think that it's personally worth it. It's a very good 1-prize attacker that can catch a lot of decks off guard. They throw that on a bench of 5 Pokemon really fast, and then just Zoroark stand-in Choice Band can do 180 right there. With Poison Bake, you can reach 210. And even if you're not attacking with Zoroark and Floatstone, it's very nice to help the mobility of the deck. There's been a lot of times today that I just had him there with a stand-in Floatstone to get around to whoever I needed, since Toads aren't very mobile. 1 Execute. Again, like I said, big thing about this deck is just consistency and resources, and I wanted to be able to trade every turn as much as possible without having to discard my valuable resources. So having 1 Execute is really important. I've considered including 2, but I think that's too bad of starting with it to include 2 in the deck, but it's certainly a possibility.
Did you ever prize 1 at all during your matches today?
Yeah, it's interesting. Execute is not something I check when I look for my prizes. Because, I mean, I'm not going to Ultra Ball for it. Not worth that. I'm not going to computer search for it, obviously. So I kind of just, when I see it, I get rid of it. But it's not on my list of priorities to look for my prizes. I mostly look for Pokemon, energy, various supporters, lasers, stuff like that.
Nice.
1 Shaman, just a lot of consistency. It's really nice to be able to set up, especially when you're fishing for a DCE. I think that for most decks, Tapu Lele in general, I think is a lot better than Shaman. This is 1 deck where I like having a Shaman just so if I need it, I can Ultra Ball for Shaman to really dig for the DCE that I need to try to Quaking Punch first turn. And then also on top of that, 1 Tapu Lele, obvious inclusion, consistency, get whatever supporter you need, decent attack, why not have it?
Nice. Alright, so that's the Pokemon line right there. Let's get into the supporters.
So for supporters, we have 2 Sycamore. Again, very standard, great supporter, why not have it? 3 N. Most lists that I've seen actually run 3 Sycamore, 2 N instead of 3 N, 2 Sycamore. The reason why I went with the heavier N count is that, again, my main focus with this deck is consistency and resources. And I didn't want to have to discard too many resources with a turn 1 Professor Sycamore as opposed to a turn 1 N. And also, again, I'm locking my opponent out of their consistency. So if I end them late game down to a few cards, even if they have trade, which most decks do, without items it can be very hard for them to find what they need after a late game end.
Nice.
1 Karen. Pretty much entirely for the Night March and also Vespiquen matchup for whatever little that is. Mostly for Night March. It's very easy for them to explode turn 1 and get a bunch of Night Marchers to the discard pile. Quaking Punch is really good at shutting down their consistency, but if they already have a bunch of Night Marchers in the discard pile, they can still kind of just run through you. The Karen into Seismitoad makes it so you can't really do much for the rest of the game. Interesting though, I did not actually play against any Night March this entire day, so I used it a few times for trade fodder, and 1 time to put 2 Zorua back in, but really probably the least useful card in the deck today.
Cool. Will you be taking this out now that you know that Well, you can kind of predict that Night March probably won't be in the meta as much as it was for San Jose. So
it's interesting. Looking forward to Dallas. I think that you could never count Night March out. I think it's a bad idea to just take a bad Night March matchup. So I think it's worth the slot personally. If you're in a matchup that's not Night March, again, you can just trade it away and it's not filling up your hands or anything. So I think it's worth it to include it, unless I was looking for space for something else.
Cool.
One Zoroark, special energy retrieval is always good. The reason why I have Zoroark in here over like a Team Flare Grunt is because I wanted the ability to get rid of my opponent's tools, because I don't actually run any Field Blower. So it was very nice, especially in the mirror matches that I played today that ran Rock Guard instead of Computer Search. I was able to Zoroark off their Rock Guard, which ended up being really important, so I could keep up in the trade. And then again, one Plumeria, just good energy retrieval. Between Plumeria and Team Flare Gun, honestly, there's very little difference. With Execute, Plumeria's downside of having to discard 2 cards is not very impactful, as opposed to being able to get the ability to discard the energy from anywhere. But in most situations, you're just discarding from the active anyway. So honestly, you kind of just pick between the two. I don't think that it's particularly important between the two. One Mallow, great card in any Zoroark deck, especially one that's so dependent on DCEs. It's great to be able to fish for the DCE you need, the Enhanced Tamer you need, the Laser, the Verbank, anything you need. Just a fantastic card. One Guzma, of course, being able to swap around Pokemon is really good. It can get you out of your locked Pokemon, it can lock up something else, it can kill priority targets, obvious inclusion. One Getsis, which is actually a card that I've considered taking out of this list. It's very nice if you've been Quaking Punching for a while, but you want to respond to a big threat with Zoroark, right, instead of just Seismitoading it, which happens fairly often.
Right.
It can be really nice to Getsis them, to get rid of all the items they've accumulated, so they don't have a big explosive turn after you get rid of the item lock. And also, late game, if they Zoroark your DCE off your Toad and you need to really fish deep for the second DCE or Laser or something like that, Getsis can get you a ton of cards. So I think it's worth it, but it's certainly something that's cuttable. I actually lost a game because of it today. I Getsis. I had 10 cards in my deck and I drew 11 cards off Getsis and lost. 2 Acerola. Again, why not have it in the deck? Most matchups have a very hard time one-shotting your Pokemon, so having the ability to bring them back and heal all that off is very powerful, as well as getting stuff out of the active that you don't need. And then one Colress, again, expanded deck's going to have a bunch of bench Pokemon, and since you're playing Zoroark, you do as well. Just a very powerful draw supporter.
Awesome. Looks like you have a very strong supporter line. So let's get into the stadiums and tools.
So first thing we have 3 Verbank City Gym. Again, Poison's a big source of your damage output. I've seen some lists run 2. Actually, some lists I saw today only ran 2, and they actually ran Luma, whatever her name is from the new set, to get them back. I like 3. It increases the consistency of getting it when you need it and gives you more access to them in the games.
And also by not running the Lusamine, you're not wasting the supporter for the turn trying to get these back.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and if you really need more too, you can always puzzle time for them. 3 Choice Band. Again, very important card. Obviously, really good to increase your damage output. I was down at 2 for a while. I actually ended up adding in 3. I took out Sudowoodo because I felt like my Zoroark matchup was strong enough without Sudowoodo, and so that was the space for the 3rd Choice Band. I just wanted to be able to find it when I need it. A lot of lists I've seen run Fighting Fury Belt and Rock Guard instead of Choice Band. I personally really like Choice Band because I find that the extra HP off of Fighting Fury Belt is usually unnecessary. I'd rather have the extra damage. And then the big reason though is because with Choice Band, Zoroark becomes a very, very legitimate attacker. Especially with 5 Pokemon on your bench, 1 active, a Choice Band, and then a Verbank Hypnotoxic Laser. You get hit 180, which is enough to one-shot most EX and GXs in the game, the basic ones at least, which is very important to hit.
yeah.
And then 2 Floatstone, just to add some mobility to the deck. That's especially important in turn 1 to get stuff out of the active so you can bring up Toad and start Quaking Punching, but in general you need to be able to move around. It's especially effective with stand-in Zoroark.
Nice. So next you will go into your items.
Alright, so first we have Computer Search. Obvious inclusion is an A-spec, obviously. A lot of the lists that I've seen are actually running Rock Guard instead of Computer Search. Like I've said a million times, my main focus with this deck was just consistency and getting resources when I need them. So I went with Computer Search just to be able to have better access to my DCEs and all that stuff. Rock Guard's viable, but I think the Computer Search version is better overall.
Cool.
2 Enhanced Tamer. We're in a very special energy intensive metagame in Expanded right now, so it's very good to be able to get rid of their special energy, especially against Night March and Zoroark. And one of the best things about it is that most of the DCE decks, actually, in fact, all of the DCE decks we're seeing expanded right now, like Zoroark, Night March, all those, are entirely dependent on Special Charge and Puzzle of Time to get back their energy. But while they're under item lock, they don't have access to that. So they actually only have access to 4 DCE over the course of the game. So getting rid of just one of those with Enhanced Hammer can be incredibly important.
Nice.
I was really torn between third Choice Band or third Enhanced Hammer. I ended up going with the Choice Hand to be able to go more aggressive more often, but I could certainly see the argument for third Enhanced Hammer. 4 Ultra Ball, again, consistency, get what you need, name of the game. 4 Puzzle of Time, get back resources when you need them, very important, especially with Zoroark. 4 Hypnotoxic Laser, you got to be able to add more damage to Toad's measly Quaking Punch every turn. Hypnotoxic Laser does just that, especially with Zoroark. Hypnotoxic Laser is really good at hitting the numbers that you need. Yeah, go ahead.
So because you're running Hypnotoxic Laser, did you ever consider running Shadow Trade?
I did actually. I had Shadow Triad in there for a while. Not necessarily. So Shadow Triad used to be included in Seismitoad decks, so that they could get like a 5th laser in a game, which was very important at the time. Right now, Puzzle of Time does that job, so you don't need Shadow Triad for that. The reason why you have the reason why I was considering Shadow Triad in here was mostly so that BS Seeker could be an out for a Hypnotoxic Laser, while conserving resources as well. I ended up not including it because I felt the deck had enough resources anyway, and being able to have Mallow instead, because Mallow can just put a Hypnotoxic Laser on top and then you can trade into it, effectively did the same thing.
Nice.
And then of course, 4 BS Seeker, get back the supporters you need. One thing that's interesting about my supporter count is that I have, I think, 7 one-of supporters, so it's very important to be able to get back the ones you need. And I think such a one-of heavy supporter line is actually really good in Zoroark, because you can just discard the ones you don't need with trade, and you can discard them when you don't need them and have access to them with BS Seeker later. So I think especially with Zoroark, it's really good.
Yeah.
And then for energy, what would you expect? 4 DC.
4 DC. So I know some other lists were running like water energies and blend energies and stuff like that. You didn't consider them at all, did you?
No, I mean, the reason why Toad decks have run other energies in the past is so that they can have a late game finisher, right? So they'd run water not because they were going to create Grenade Hammer, consistently throughout the game, but because they wanted to, for the last 2 prizes or to take out a big threat, they wanted to be able to have that option of grenade hammering. In this deck, Zoroark does just that, just for the same DCEs, so you don't really need any other energy.
Nice. Cool. Alright, so that was the deck list right there. Alright guys, so that was pretty much it. So moving forward, are there any changes that you're going to do to the deck?
I don't know, it's interesting. The meta's been evolving a lot since San Jose. And San Jose, which unfortunately I wasn't able to go to, we saw just a bunch of Night March, a bunch of Zoroark, which this deck is certainly really good against.
Right.
The meta that I've seen today, that I've seen people talking about, is actually a lot different than that. I think the most popular deck that I saw today was actually Glissapod, which obviously is scary for the deck. I was able to beat it. I beat it in Swiss as well as in top 8. But it's a scary matchup, so I don't know that I'd change the list at all, but it's certainly a meta call to play the deck as a whole.
Cool. And going into the tournament today, what were you expecting to see? What was one of your biggest, I guess, kind of like red flags? Kind of like you're like, oh, I'm going to see a lot of this, so I'm going to play this to counter it. Because I would think that's what you came into the game today.
Well, I think obviously my number one expectation, like everyone, I think was a lot of Night March and Zoroark, which I didn't actually play against any Night March or any Zoroark today. A lot of other decks, which was very surprising to me. But again, I think that's kind of just a show that people are aware that people are starting to counter Night March and Zoroark, so they're trying to move away from those, and I think their meta is shifting away from that a lot.
Cool, perfect. And moving forward, is there any other big tournament that we plan to see you at?
Yeah, I'm going out to Dallas Regionals in a few weekends. Really excited for that. I'm in school full time, so unfortunately I can only go to any events that I can leave Friday night and be back by Monday morning. So this season I've gone to 2 League Cups and a Regionals. I won both League Cups and I got second at the Regionals, so I'm at 260 from that. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do well at Dallas and maybe clean up my invite.
That's pretty amazing for you, just doing a couple events that you're capable of doing. Is this something you're planning on playing for Dallas?
I don't know. Again, like I said, I think it's a very strong deck, but I do think that it's dependent on a certain meta. So if I think that there's going to be a large amount of Night March and Zoroark in Dallas, which I still think there will be, I think that you can never count those two decks out. I think that they're going to show up. Maybe not in as dominant numbers as we saw in San Jose, but certainly they'll be there. And if I do think that's going to be a predominant meta, certainly this would be the deck I'd probably look at first. But if I expect to see a field full of Galissapod, obviously I'd reconsider that.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the channel. It's a pleasure to have you. Guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to share the video for anybody that's interested to see what got first place out in Bakersfield, and if anybody's trying to figure out what to play for Dallas. With that said, guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.